live before lock, the late show is on my mind. PGA, myself, Ben Raza, Jason Roslin, the team back in action here, ready to break down the API. This is a great swing. Obviously, we're going to have big tournaments leading all the way up to the real big, Masters right around the corner. But this is one of my favorite earlier season tournaments. Is it one of your favorite earlier season tournaments?
Yeah, I had the pleasure of going last year for Tuesday. Cool. Yeah, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So we're about an hour and a half, I would say, through all basically woods and sticklands, no highway. It's all the back roads there, directly due east from me. I didn't get to go this year. I got a little bit too much going on with the little one, but it's an awesome golf course. I mean, Bay Hill is just second to none. I love the 18th hole. It's a 123-man field, so that does make the 6 of 6 go up a little bit, which does make it a little bit more interesting for me, of course. But yeah, we got an elite field even with Tiger not in it. So I would say early season, Valspar obviously takes the cake for me because it's just so close to home, and I'll be there probably all 6 days. But API is definitely a close second. I'm not a fan of the West Coast swings. I like the 6 o'clock start time, 6:45 start time. So, I'm all about it, to be honest.
Yeah, I never get used to that. I don't know why, because it happens every year. But early in the year when it's like 8 o'clock Eastern at night and guys are still playing, I don't like that. I like
it's just morning.
Weird. Yeah, it really is. Give me cut sweat during the afternoon.
Yeah, when I wake up, I want to watch golf. I don't want to sit around for 3 hours making more lineups. I've done that the first 3 days. So
no, it's that's the worst when you can tinker till noon. But anyway, obviously we got a ton of stuff to get into. Do you want to do a quick recap, as we always do, of last week? Some good, some bad. You had a good week again, which is obviously always good to say.
Yeah, so it really kind of came out of nowhere. I got to be honest with you. I got a buddy that lives here in Tampa that a lot of people know in the industry at Sammy Knoll, and he had the lead in the pressure putt going into Sunday, had the lead, through Sunday for a while. So I was keeping an eye on him more than I was watching my 150. Then all of a sudden, when Mitchell birdied 15, which, we'll talk about that in just a couple of minutes, I then checked my 150 team that had him in there. I kind of gave up on it because it had Sam Burns on there, who MDF'd. But I took my Lucas Beauregard, who I'm going to ask you for credit on my hot take because it's 2 positions away.
No, we'll give you. You definitely get partial credit. That's
all right. I'll take partial credit. So I was happy to have Beauregard, who ended up in the top 10 of DraftKings points as well for the week. Happy to have him get me through. And, of course, I wound up on Killa Keith. And the reason why I wound up on him is in the 150, my strategy was to jam Ricky and JT. So it pushed me down all the way down to as pretty much as low as I could go, which got me Beauregard. And then I went Jim Furyk for a little safety. And I needed 2 6,800 guys. So I was between Roberto Castro and Keith Mitchell. Roberto Castro I put on the other team. So it just so happened that I put Keith Mitchell on this team, and that's kind of how it works out. So, good week there. And FanDuel, I just wanted to bring up because I tallied up the salary on my 300 team, which ended up coming in 10th. But my salary on DraftKings would have been $5,800, $58,000, $8,000 over the cap. I was able to fit it in on FanDuel, and it was a pretty good line. It cashed in every contest, made 6 of 6. So definitely something to take note of. Again, I know we talk about it a lot, but
it's true. You can get crazy price discrepancies. And that's something, obviously, at the end of the show we've been doing, and we're going to continue to do because it's important you can identify. There's a lot of guys where I'm, indifferent to, but on a site like FanDuel or on DraftKings, they make a much more core play just based on that salary.
Absolutely. So how about you? Anything go right for you last week?
So it was a bizarre week. I'll just say real quick for me. Actually, Sunday was just a whirlwind of a day off the course. That's neither here nor there. Okay. I had a really good showdown, which is not my forte, on Friday and Sunday, which really helped me. Just a stroke of good luck. I had a few teams that made a real deep run in the club twirl, but they didn't have enough holes left. Didn't even know I had the teams. They were Ryan Palmer teams. And when he went crazy, I got up there. So it was fine. I really didn't have much going. The cut really hurt me. I needed JT out. That would have been nice,
and you would have picked up the hot take too.
And I would have picked up the hot take. So that's what hurt worse. You can't put a price.
And he slid in too. It's not like he was like in the lead going into the week, and he slid into the cut.
It was bad. But no, the week overall, honestly, when you don't have much going, it's all about damage control, and Showdown usually is a way for me to add to the damage, but it wasn't this week. That was a welcome sight. So a little momentum actually going into this week.
Yeah. Any specific strategy that you focused on in the Showdown that you want to share with everybody?
No, I mean, obviously you produce a ton of great content on the site behind the paywall, which is certainly a part of it. It was just, you know, with the wind, you get the guys going out early on Sunday. It's a whole different dynamic because of the placement points. And I was just fortunate enough to have, Brooks and Ricky, who were the guys I thought could chase, and Keith Mitchell. Yep. It's nothing really too fancy, just traditional
stuff. The right spots and
just right spots. Obviously, a couple guys who were striking it well, weren't making some putts, and we've talked about that on the Friday betting show and some other things of just it tends to regress, not immediately, but it was more just good fortune, a couple good breaks with Ryan Palmer and whatnot.
Yeah, certainly. So to kind of finish up, we'll move on from the DraftKings stuff last week, but I do want to talk about the tournament for a second. I'm sure you watched on Sunday, I take it?
I watched as much as I could. I wasn't around the TV for part of it. Got back for Keith Mitchell. Gutsy. I give him all the credit in the world, especially that putt on 18.
So wanted to bring up that there were 20 golfers within 4 shots going into the final day. I love tournaments like that. I mean, we had Kyung Hyun Lee had a chance to chip in for Eagle to get to that 8-under mark. He would have knocked 4 guys in the playoff if Mitchell had missed and he had made. I just love tournaments like that. I think it's so much more exciting when you can see Ryan Palmer go out first on Sunday, first or second, shoot 7 under and give himself a chance to win. Those tournaments I love. So just want to bring that up. And then there was one thing that I found really interesting that I kind of just wanted to get your take on, and maybe we can use this in Showdown a little bit more. And it's hard to maybe do a little bit pre-tournament, but Sungjae Im versus Brooks Koepka. And the reason why I'm putting these two together is on Saturday, both were obviously in the golf tournament. Sungjae was in the lead. Koepka was maybe 2 back at the time. And they both either, I didn't see the shot and nobody did, either snap hooked one into the water on 2, or they were trying to hit a nice cut over the trees and just caught the trees and went into the water. Only 2 guys do it all week. Both made double. Koepka, however, though, played his next 13 or let's say 14 holes at 3 under, where Sungjae played him at 6 over. Significant difference. Obviously, we got a 20-year-old who just, may lack the little bit of mental fortitude. Does that make you nervous about when he may get into position to win prior to Sunday? Is it something we want to see him now chase instead of be in the lead?
I think there's something to that in general. You brought up, and credit to you, I'm not sure how many people saw it. You should watch our Friday show. It's a lot of fun with me and Jordan and Jason come on. You mentioned Wyndham Clark as someone to jump on, and he was right up there. And he was the type of guy where I was like, if you're him, you don't want to be sitting on the lead. I didn't think that was the best spot. So obviously, in Showdown and stuff, you can be cognizant. It's tough. I think this is counterintuitive. I'm not saying this was a good thing, but Keith Mitchell, he bogeyed his first 2 holes on Sunday. And you know what? If anything, it does take the pressure off.
Yep.
You don't want to be doing that, of course, but it's better for an inexperienced guy to definitely sit a little off and hopefully post a number. And that's why a tournament like API, which we're getting into, if you have a big round, you can move up so fast, because this isn't it's not a scoring fest. It's a fair challenge. Yep. Good shots are rewarded, but if you play bad, you're not going, you can go south pretty quickly.
Yeah, and we see, like, Rory last year was minus 18, and the big reason to that versus the Honda Classic this past week is that there's 4 par 5s. There's really no, the difference in this scoring discrepancy because of that. If Honda Classic had 2 more par 5s to it, then that score would likely be 18 under as well. So a true test. Love these tests that we got in Florida. It rewards it. So I'm just going to start randomly, and then we'll get into kind of the structure that we have, just because we just talked about Sungjae Im. The inexperience you just mentioned, do you think that he's able to now take that and carry it over? We saw Keith Mitchell kind of fail at the Sony Open, got himself right back in it and won the next time. We know Sungjae Im's got the talent. Are you jumping right back in? And I know I'm jumping around a little bit, but because we just talked about him, I thought we'd start the show off talking about a good value, obviously on DraftKings at $7K. Is he going right back into the player pool for you?
Right back in. Actually heavier. I had some last week, but not a ton. And he's, I think I was I was not turned off by that at all. I thought it was what I wanted to see. He had played so many weeks in a row, hit a little snag, got some rest, and yeah, it wasn't the perfect finish, but that was a good showing in my book. So he doesn't need to be. If he's competing on Sunday, that's a bonus when you're 7K. His job is to make the cut, play solid golf, and he can do that. So he absolutely right back in a ton of my lineups. Think you could go there and cash if you wanted to. I don't have any problems with that at all. What about you? Do you feel the same way?
Yep, I sure do, and was hoping you'd echo that. Just because, here's my thought: 58 DraftKings points last week, and he scored 1 on Saturday. So obviously, he's making birdies and giving himself opportunities. The approach proximity from over 200 yards last week looked really good, which will be very, very important this week on all the par threes. So, yeah, he's my best value on the board. And I didn't mean to jump around. It's just we were talking about him, so I thought I'd bring him up. But now we can kind of go into our little theme here. And first we always check on the weather, and we're in Florida. It's March, so it's likely you're going to get anything above 70 degrees and probably bright sunshine. And it looks like we have that. The first 2 days looks like maybe 10-mile-an-hour wind, consistent. Nothing really that, it's going to honestly keep the players cool as the weather gets warmer Friday, Saturday. No weather angle for you this week, I take it?
Nope. This is as good as they're going to you could ask for. It'll be a little cold in the morning. I don't worry about that. Doesn't mean, as I say every week, I still have some tee time stacks, of course, but it's not because I think one wave has a big advantage, just because stuff happens. And we always see that. So it's pretty straight up. And this is, I think, no matter what, I don't know how you could root for weather playing a factor. This is what you want to see. Let the golfers decide it as much as they can.
Definitely. Absolutely. I'd rather have this, than trying to eliminate one side of the field. It just doesn't always pan out. It normally doesn't pan out. So speaking of tee times, let's go into some of the marquee tee times we're going to see over the first 2 days, and who we can kind of focus on in those tee time stacks a little bit. First one I want to talk about, which is really interesting, is Justin Rose, Henrik Stenson, and Brandt Snedeker. Rose and Stenson played together a couple of years ago when Stenson had that, put it in the water, tried to hit it about 2 feet, put it back in the water, took his shoes off. Totally crazy. Let's talk about the tee time first. Is it something that you'd be interested in stacking these guys, or at least 2 of the 3? And are all 3 in your player pool?
All 3 are in my player pool. I feel like not a lot of people like Stenson. I'm not in love with the play, but at 7,200, I think he's good enough just on caliber. Obviously, Rose is, if you told me you want to start lineups with Rose, I would say it sounds like a good idea. Just like the other guys up there. It's hard to pick a bad one. He's just good. I watched his presser. I really like his attitude. I just like the way he conducts himself. Not that means much, but he comes ready to play. He has a schedule that he picks out, and when he just plays well. The only blip on his recent form is when he was testing out those new irons in the desert. Other than that, he's been unstoppable. Obviously, Stenson is the wild card.
Yeah.
I am playing him. I do have some Stenson. I paired him with Rose in a lot of the teams. I'm hoping that maybe a comfortable pairing a comfortable course. It's everything you could ask for to turn it around. Obviously, the recent form is atrocious. It's not up to Stenson standards. It's not up to an average tour player standards. But he dominates this course. He always has. And with a guy like Stenson, I don't worry about it too much, just because he's a veteran. He's been there. He's done that.
Sure. I will say the thing on Stenson, one of the things I'm almost positive there's a caddy thing going on. I'm not sure if his old caddy is hurt or
he's using Rose's old caddy, I believe.
Yes, he. Well, now Rose's current caddy got had a heart transplant, so Rose is
the other way around,
right? Yeah. Okay. So I think it's Rose is using Stenson's old caddy, and Stenson's using a new caddy, but he hasn't signed on with him. He was using Scott Vail over the winter, and it was in the dating phase, and it didn't really go that well. So if that's solved, I think Stenson is a character personality golfer. Whereas if he's pissed, he doesn't care. And in that video that I kind of brought up here at the beginning of this was he did not care after the first 2 shots. He kept doing it. He putted with his wedge. He clearly threw it, and he doesn't care. However, if he's on, he knows he's on, and he wants to beat the field as best he can. So Stenson is a little too Jekyll and Hyde for me. I'm not ready to go there yet, especially in the 8s. If he was priced down with, say, like Matt Fitzpatrick and Wallace at 7,400, I would be much more inclined, and I think a lot of the field would be too, obviously. But, it looks like, and you can also get the full ownership projections on the site. Looks like we have them right around 10%, so reasonable for me. But all right, so we'll move on to our second tee time, and this one's really fun because of the first two guys. Obviously, they had one of the most epic Ryder Cup matches, and that's Rory McIlroy, Patrick Reed, and Mark Leishman. I suppose Rory's in your player pool, but how about Patrick Reed and Mark Leishman? Leishman is definitely a roller coaster former winner. Reed set up nicely for this course. It does fit him well. They all make it, or are you fading one of them?
They all made it. Leishman's just a guy. It's always tough where he should be priced. It's like, oh man, 9,500, that's expensive. And it's like, is it? Because he's damn good. I think people don't realize how good of a player he is. So I have no problem with him. As you said 2 years ago, certainly has some results here that you like to see. Rory, again, he's in the rose bucket. He's just more expensive than everyone else. So it puts a little strain on the cap, but I made room for Rory. I don't know how you couldn't, even if you want to leverage it. I think he's clearly the type of guy that you shouldn't, if you're making enough teams, you should have some position on him. I don't know why that's a bold stance to not have any. Patrick Reed, you're right. I think he can be crafty around the greens. This place has a lot of bunkers. There is some scrambling opportunities no matter how well you're hitting it. So I used him not a ton in certain lineups. I paired him with the Hattons of the world, some of the other creative guys around the greens in some of those correlated stacks. But these are three guys that are good enough for me to make the pool for sure.
Yeah, and the thing about Patrick Reed, he just puts up points on DraftKings. Even if he doesn't play all that well, he still will get hot, and he's a guy that will make 3 in a row and get those birdie streaks that end up being pivotal down the road. So, all right, the next one, which will be the last tee time we chat about, except for the guys first going out, but I have to talk to you about this one. It's Brooks Koepka, Bryson DeChambeau, and Phil Mickelson. And obviously, Brooks Koepka made those widely heard comments about slow play on the PGA Tour, and it was obviously directed at Bryson. Not just Bryson, but obviously Bryson was the main focal point of it. This is the first time they're paired together. Now, of course, Brooks would probably, take Bryson in a wrestling match with both arms tied behind his back. So I'm not expecting a throwdown here, but do you expect Bryson to kind of a little bit be on edge on that? And subsequently, do you expect Brooks to be on edge? Obviously, Brooks is the most intimidating golfer probably on the PGA Tour other than Tiger Woods. So what do you make of Bryson's mental capacity going into this this pairing here?
I think it actually helps both of them. I don't read too much into it, to be honest, but I do think the little that it does affect is a positive for just the way they conduct themselves. Brooks,
maybe a little rivalry or something like that.
Yeah. Like Brooks is the kind of guy that I'm not saying he wouldn't play well and now he's going to, but he comes in and he likes to make a statement with his play. I think Bryson's kind of the same way. He does things. It's Bryson. He gets the scientist and whatnot. So I have a feeling both of them in their own way want to make a little extra statement. Phil is just a spectator in my book. I prefer him not even be there. But those two, again, these are the type of guys, and it's just a question of how do you want to allocate? Do you want to take two of them and then go to the 6s? Do you want to start with one of them and then really hit that 8K range? But Bryson and Brooks are very solid plays.
Yeah, and you mentioned Phil. It's funny. I wish he was just not even there.
So
it's funny. I will be interested to see if Koepka was taking just a kind of a bit of a jab or making fun when he said that he would use a bathroom break instead of using his time to hit. It'll be interesting to see if he does get fed up with Bryson's antics. If he ends up doing that, my guess is no. But it'll certainly be fun to watch. They are on PGA Tour Live if you subscribe to that. It'll be fun to watch tomorrow morning, bright and early. I believe they're the 7:53. I'll verify in our next segment. But last one's guys first going out. We just mentioned it just because if they get ideal scoring conditions, they can always post the number. Tim Herron, Abraham Answer, and Ryan Blom in the first threesome. Any interest? I know you and I like Abraham Answer a bit. I know you like Ryan Blom.
Ryan Blom, my man. Ryan Blom lost 5 strokes putting, which is the most atypical thing last week. Answer, if I had to pick Tim Herron, obviously not.
Yeah.
Answer's the kind of guy I don't mind if you want to take a couple stabs at him.
It doesn't seem to be there right now, though, huh?
Yeah, it's not great. Personally, when I'm looking just at the player pool, I'd rather go back to Scott Piercy. I know that's disgusting for a lot of reasons because Scott Piercy does things. It's really tilting, but
25% at 8.1K last week. Crazy, blew my mind. In some contests, not in all contests, but yeah.
Like, he finally putted good, but he made sure to put in 2 in the water to negate it. And then the next day he strikes it perfectly and he can't make,
anything.
A 5-footer. It is what it is, but there's so much talent in this field that I do find it tough, even in a first round leader setting for some of these guys. There's just a lot of names, not just the big, 10K plus options. You have a multitude of guys in the 9s, even in that high 7s that I think.
How about one of those names, Haotong Li, also going off first with Anirban Lahiri and Ryan Moore. Again, I mean, this guy is uber talented. Could he go out and shoot 700 and post a number?
He's the kind of guy I like more as a bet.
Yep.
He's getting some talk in the DFS world. I've actually taken a fade stance on that. Nothing against him. Like I said, I may actually hedge it with a bet just because we know he has the firepower. Sure. I'm just, for a miscut equity, I think it's pretty lucrative if the ownership is there. I will say, as an extreme punt, I do have a little Lahiri.
Yeah, flash for him last week with Potter again. That's normal for him.
He can do some things on a course like this. I don't worry about that. It's just you have to take him in things where you're like, all right, this guy's probably not going to get through. He's just not that good, and he's got a ton of miscut equity. But with these top heavy, the $5 is 150K up top. Someone like Lahiri, you need something. There's a lot of people in a tournament like that this week.
Definitely. All right, so we'll move on to our next one where we're just going to pair up some golfers together and kind of just debate them, play them, or fade them. First one is Justin Rose and Francesco Molinari, and I grouped them together because they're both playing new clubs. Molinari has only played his new Callaways that he just signed a deal with, I believe, once in Mexico, and the form looked pretty good in Mexico for Molinari. It's interesting, though, that they're only making like 3 or 4 sets of Molinari's clubs, so it's not like you and I can go out and get them. Yeah, so it's kind of weird. Rose actually went out and missed the cut in Saudi Arabia on the Euro Tour after winning the Farmers, which, again, it was a long flight. It was directly after. But the consistency for Rose for 10.7, for me personally, it's too much. I would rather lose like I did at the Farmers against him than try and go overweight in this scenario. Rose obviously still figuring out the new clubs. That's why I grouped these guys together. So are you buying Rose at 10.7, or are you spending the extra 700 or taking a price difference and going lower, or are you going to go up to Rory?
I mostly go up to Rory, but I don't think Rose is going to make a super impact one way or the other. I think I come in pretty much around the field.
Okay.
I don't have Molinari. He's one I could live without. And it's just, he's 9K. I don't know. There was just too many other guys, Fleetwood in particular, Decky, who's not, we had the fake withdrawal fiasco. Decky is fine. Taylor Gooch has withdrawn.
Yep.
So for me, Rose is a guy that I didn't want to make a super aggressive stance. There is a little concern. I feel comfortable, of course, with him. But Rory, Ricky, those are the two up top that kind of poke their heads out in front of the others for me.
So what I do like about Molinari, I think, is a lot of people, the higher up buy-in that you go, so 44, 444, 150, and so on in the 1500, I'm thinking a lot of people will go to either Rory or Rose, whereas these now 9,300, 9,500 guys won't be as highly owned. So I'm taking more of the stance in the higher dollars of stacking 3 9K guys, not named Bryson, and taking that kind of stance, using it as a game theory hedge. I think that's the only way in this scenario that you could get me to play somebody like Molinari over Rose. Obviously, price has something to do with it, but when you add in price and ownership, those are the kind of avenues that I like to look forward to. Plus, Molinari did have the 13th or at least the top 15 in Mexico, so I do like that form coming back. Hasn't played that much, so he needs some FedEx. Yeah, he needs some FedEx Cup points, so I think it's a good week. So let's talk about Rory and Bryson really quick. Both are expected pretty much no matter where you look as the highest owned guys of the week. I've heard a lot of Rory talk, so you can skip out on him. But how about Bryson for you? It looks like he's going to be the highest owned, somewhere around 25% in the $5. Tell me something that you're going to do with Bryson. You going to go equal, over, or under?
Bryson is because you just mentioned it. He's a little cheaper than the other guys. I found myself able to get mid-20s in terms of exposure.
Okay.
And in a lot of the lineups, he's my second guy. And that's what really came down to it. I figured, okay, I'm going to do one of two things. If I can't get him with somebody else, I'll start a couple of lineups with Bryson, go balanced. And I have no problem with that because I wanted him in the pool. But what ended up happening is I have those lineups, and then I have a handful of lineups where I have Bryson and Ricky, or Bryson and Rory, or Bryson and Day. So he got extra ownership for me because of that.
Yep.
We talked about him and Brooks. I think that's a good pairing for them. Hopefully Phil won't screw it up for us all. But other than that, he's them in Mexico. Obviously, he did not like the greens. We saw him putting till all hours of the night. I don't worry. This is Bermuda. This is a course that he likes. I think we see Bryson rebound and put together a really quality 4 days.
Yeah. The only reason I'm going to say I'm not fading him on DraftKings, but if the ownership is going to be that high, as I've mentioned, we see pockets where on FanDuel he's going to be less because of that. No, I don't know that that's going to be happening this week, but I have seen it happen in past weeks, especially with Bryson. So I'm going to take that again. I'm going to play all of my Bryson or most of my Bryson on FanDuel. It's just a little easier to go in and get, say, Bryson, Hideki, and Rory all in the same lineup on FanDuel, and they don't even let you on DraftKings. So that's my stance there. Whereas now, if Bryson comes in top 25s, he's not going to hurt me on FanDuel because of the salary structure, and I'll take a win on DraftKings, obviously, if Bryson doesn't end up inside the top 25. And obviously, if he ends up inside the top 10, I better hope my FanDuel lineups are well, because he is going to be the highest owned on DraftKings. So that's kind of the stance I'm taking there.
It's tough. Obviously, you can get my biggest concern, for my lineups this week is that I don't rake myself. Because, you start taking 15% of this guy, 20% of this guy. Before you know it, you have no real leverage.
You have no leverage at all. You're just you're hoping to get real lucky on a bunch of your 15 ownership, and that's just normally doesn't work out.
No. So that's really where I'm at with that.
So I was wrong. Mickelson's the afternoon featured group, so we don't get them bright and early. Too bad. I'm sorry. We actually are going to get, let me see here. We're going to get the Rose, Snedeker, Stenson, Fowler, Day, and Poulter pairings in the morning, which is fine. I'm okay with them.
Those are 6 good guys. I will say I have Poulter's a guy I don't like to play, but he really is playing well. I used to this week.
Yeah, I got him on the list. Why don't we head down to him? Where did I put him here? I'm
just running amok.
Oh, here we go. He's in the mid-price chalk. So there's a bunch of guys in this 8.5 to 8K range that are going to be anywhere between 10 and 15%. I'm going to just rattle them off, and then you can kind of tell me who you like in here. A couple of them we've already talked about, but Keegan Bradley, Jason Kokrak, Lucas Glover, Stenson, Poulter, Watson, and Oosthuizen. Like I said, all around 10%, maybe a couple under 10, and certainly probably a couple over 10. Poulter maybe being the highest. Poulter is my favorite here. He hasn't missed a cut in a while. I think he is a great cash game play, maybe for your higher dollars. If he is going to be 20%, though, I'm almost taking like a Jim Furyk stance where I'm not going to play him in the $5. I'll play him in the 150 and the higher dollar ones, but I'll fade him just because of maybe capped upside at this tournament. What's your thought here?
I'm in a similar bucket as you. I like Poulter. I think he makes a fine cash play. Dollars wise, I'm going to need him because he's on my cash team, which has a lot going for it. But in tournament lineups, I'm not a huge fan. I would rather take Usti. I'd rather take Bubba. Guys that have, to me, a higher chance of missing the cut. But I think they also have a higher win equity. Usti's a boomer bust play. Always Bubba, I'm not sure how he'll like this course, but I will say that he can just destroy the 4 par 5s. And if you shoot 6 under in the first 2 days on the par 5s, which I think is pretty reasonable for him, all you have to do is not screw it up at the rest of the course. So I'm with you there. Kokrak is a guy that I get it. He's playing well. It lines up. I don't just know that's not going to work for me. I'll let other people continue to play him and continue to churn out good performances, or he'll regress because he's co-crack.
Same sentiment for Lucas Glover, or has he really turned a leaf here?
He's putting pretty well, which is, it's half scary, half encouraging, because he's an awful putter. If he keeps that up, though, my God, he's going to be very good. I kind of have him and Keegan. They're such good ball strikers. They're such bad putters. Again, I think that caps the upside to an extent, unless they really get going on the greens, as Glover did last week, and then we saw he was right there. Don't mind him in a cash format if you wanted to attack that 8K range. Poulter would be my preferred of the three, but I do have some, just because when you have ball striking at that kind of level, we see what even 2 or 3 strokes gained putting does for a guy.
Well, on that same sentiment, and I'm jumping around just a tad, and I have some guys a little higher that I want to get your thoughts on. But while we're talking about great ball strikers and guys that are just bad putters, are you looking, and I am personally, I'm taking the $700 price difference from Lucas Glover and the probable maybe 5 to 10% ownership difference, and going down to Benny On, who just continues to throw up great tee to green numbers and horrific putting numbers. So I guess that's kind of my thought, is this is Benny On's home game. He already came out and tweeted it. This is his home game as he's going to get. Obviously, he's from Korea but lives in Orlando. Loves the golf course. I just don't see why, if you're betting on Lucas Glover's putting to remain hot, fine, I understand. But if you're not, why are you playing Glover and not taking the? And I don't mean you personally. I'm just saying for anyone, I would take the $700 price difference and go down to Benny On at that point. Can you buy into that, or?
Sure, but Benny On's one of my highest guys on the entire slate. The thing that I like about him is, if he loses 5 strokes putting again, it's not like he's been missing the cut. No. It's not what you want, but he's turning in. You're like, man, this is frustrating. But he gives you a chance if he comes in 35th. That's not, again, the goal, but how much worse can it get? So there's a whole lot of room for improvement. I'm not going to say that the putting is just going to magically turn around, but it's a high variance thing. Putting is the most variance. So
we need a round and a half out of him, basically, out of good putting. We need a good round prior to Sunday, and then a half a round on Sunday, and he's going to get a top 15. So that's kind of what we're banking on there.
7,500. I'm just going to continue to kind of play him, because when you're doing something so well, and it's not just something, it's striking the ball, ball striking approaches. I'll live on that train. I like him a lot. RCB, same price, also like him. But Benny On is a guy that I think makes a great play in all formats.
For sure. All right, talk to me about Jason Day. We haven't mentioned him at all. He's going to come in right at 20%, kind of like he normally does. Is that an overweight for you? We don't have to spend too much time on him, but overweight, underweight, are equal for you. And is he in play in the higher dollars?
So, as I said, my biggest concern was I was worried about raking myself.
Yep.
Jason Day is the one guy that kind of got squeezed out a bit for me. I have some exposure, but Ricky, Bryson, and these other guys just ate up too much ownership. And like I said, you can't have everyone. So it's tough. There's nothing against Day. He hasn't played as much. He hasn't been on my mind. Does have a win here. I think it's a fine course. All these guys up there. But he's the one where I'm a little underweight against the field.
Yeah, we've just seen Brooks come off a T2, Ricky a T2 and a win, Rory 3 top 5s. It's just so hard to play Jason Day when we just haven't seen him in a little while. And granted, when we've seen him, he's been okay. But all right, I'm kind of in the same boat. All right, so low owned 9K guys, there's 4 of them this week we're going to get in the high 8s and low 9s. Give me one, if any, are you going to play him? Berger, Hatton, Horschel, and Mickelson. We talked a little bit about Phil, but any of the 4 make the player pool?
God, what a group.
I know.
That is some real disturbing stuff. Berger made the player pool.
Okay.
And he made it last week. His irons were awful. He putted great. He's been putting great. He putted great in Puerto Rico from what we can tell.
Yep.
He needs to get back to hitting more greens. There's no doubt about it. I was encouraged in the sense that on Thursday, his irons through the first 9 holes were as bad as anyone's, and then he slowly fixed it in round. And then Friday he played a little better. The weekend, not much. So I do have some of him. Hatton I have on a couple specific teams. I can't really figure him out, but around the green he's good enough where I can I can make a case. The other two, Billy Ho is on, I don't want to say the blacklist, but I'm not playing him. He has been talk about putting the lights out. It's just insane. I'm kind of thinking that regresses, and you can still go to these guys. They're very talented, but for me, a couple of them did not make the cut.
Out on all four on this side. Very, very small, one or two lineups, maybe at the very most for me. I just couldn't get there. I would rather take a $1,200 price difference and go to Hanan and Rafa Cabrera-Bello, even more against Phil Mickelson. So 4 guys expected over 10% in below 8K this week. In the 7s, I think Ryan Armour is projected in the 6s, very, very close to 10%. So because he's at 6.2. So here are the 4 that are projected right at 10. We already talked about Haotong Li, Zach Johnson, who did have some good tee to green numbers last week. Rafa, who we talked about, looks like he's going to be close to 20, and Adam Hadwin. I know you're playing Rafa. I am as well. I think that the price is just silly. Even if he ends up coming in 33rd, it's at 7,500. That's all you need from him.
No damage. Yep.
Yeah, that 33rd and 15th in types of DraftKings points is going to be like 5, maybe 10 points at the most. So I'm okay with it. Rafa, ZJ is close. Like I said, tee to green looked good. Adam Hadwin, I am out on though. How about you? And Haotong Li, I am going to play. He's going to be popular. So I don't know where I'm going to play him yet. It might end up over on FanDuel because he wasn't nearly as popular on FanDuel a couple of weeks ago. So maybe that remains. But like you, I'm having trouble if he is going to be the chalky price here. Whereas there's plenty of pivots, Matt Wallace, and so on.
There are a lot of that's a crowded range for me. So I'm out on Haotong. The other guys, obviously we just talked about RCB. Hadwin, I don't really like either, to be honest, but I did use him again. I have a couple of teams it's almost all the guys I don't love. Hatton, Hadwin, those types of
Poulter, yeah.
Yeah, they can get really hot around the greens. They're crafty, not the longest hitters on tour. So I mixed and matched enough where, and I hope this doesn't happen, but if one of those guys breaks through, I have a couple of outs that could really save me. It's a long shot. You're down to lotto tickets, but at least I do have a couple outs. Not going to be core plays. I just don't really see it overall.
Okay, I've got 3 good questions or segments to end this little one. So, all right, pick a Euro. Matt Wallace,
Ooh.
Matt Fitzpatrick, or Thor Bjorn Olesen, Thunder Bear.
It's Fitzy for me. I think this course suits him. He doesn't need to be – obviously distance is never a bad thing, but he can lean on his long iron play. That's what you're going to see here. A lot of those shots, whether it's the par 5s or, some of the longer par 3s and whatnot. Good putter. 7,300, I don't think he'll be owned. He's going to have some ownership, but he's not going to be popular by any stretch. Matt Wallace, I have no problem with, but I would lean Fitzy.
Okay, I'm taking Wallace here.
Yeah.
I played Wallace the last 2 weeks. I think you kind of figured that. Loved him on FanDuel. Nobody is playing him over there. He was 3% in the $300 last week. And he's a great putter. As Fitzy's a good putter, Wallace is a great putter. We saw his irons come around a little bit last week. Maybe not as much as I wanted, but I think that this stretch, we're going to see a top 10 from him. I think it could be this week. I don't know that he sets up quite as good as Beauregard was last week, but he's also $1,000 more. So that's probably why I'm not quite as excited. But I love him low owned. You're going to probably see me have like 30 or 40% of them and get 10x. Looking for that leverage in the $5, like you and I talked about, 150K to first. That there's millions of entries, not quite a million, but you need to differentiate. So, all right, pick a cheap Euro. I don't know if you are aware of this guy or played this guy in your Euro time, Sammy Horsfield, or Eddie Pepperell, who's over here for a couple of starts as well. So pick a cheapie.
It's got to be Horsfield. He had a great showing here. I don't know what happened to him. I thought he was on a nice trajectory, and then he kind of slowed his roll a bit. But I believe he's got some ties to Florida, and he has had a good showing here before. Pepperell, but like I said, great Twitter follow. His game's not in the best shape, though, so it would be him. I'm not sure if either. There's a couple guys, non-Euros, that I like kind of in that similar price range.
Yep. Yeah, interesting with Horsfield. He went on a really nice run there last year. A couple of top fives, couple of top tens, and then what really teared off. Yeah, played in Puerto Rico, missed the cut in Puerto Rico. So if I had to lean one of those two, and this was more just kind of was testing the waters to see if you liked him, I'm out on both though. To be honest, I couldn't get there. Like you, I'd rather go to someone like Harold Varner or Joaquin Niemann even. Who we'll talk about in our next segment. So, okay, last one is pick a rookie, and you could tell me none, but I'd like you to tell me one of these guys that they're going to make the player pool. Probably not though. It's Brandon Thornberry, who is now turned pro. He's a true rookie. Justin Sue, who is actually the #1 ranked amateur in the world right now. He's I believe a sophomore over at USC. And then Victor Hovland, who we've talked about a little bit before. Pick your favorite rookie, and if none, tell me who you would pick if you had to play one of them.
So it's none for me, definitely none. But Chad has been mentioning this guy, Brandon Thornberry. I've seen a little of him. He's these guys, they're going to be names. There's no doubt about it. He's the one, I believe it was St. Jude. He had a real good showing last year. He's got some ties to this, South. So he would be the guy, and there's a chance I have a sliver of him. I like his game. I have seen some of him. I know the Sue guy, super high pedigree. I don't know anything about him other than that. Hovland, we've seen a little bit, but nothing I'm too confident in.
Yeah. So Thornberry, interestingly enough, when he played, let me look it up. I'm going to look it up for you. Anyways, what I'm getting at is he was the min price on FanDuel, and he was a little bit more expensive on DraftKings, very similar to what we're seeing this week. And he was really high owned on FanDuel that week. Very surprising. He's min price again. He's min price again there. I'm going to play him there again and probably join a couple of other people doing that. He's got tremendous upside. There is no doubt in my mind. He hasn't found the way in on the professional tour yet. Even when he had that 4th place, he was still an amateur then. So he's got very little world ranking points. He's got very little anything, very little status anywhere right now. He didn't even play well in the web.com tour Q school. So he's got very limited status there. Regardless, he needs a monster start to kind of jumpstart his career. I'll play that a little bit. I'll play that angle. Hovland and Sue. Yeah, we've seen these amateurs, these high pedigree amateurs like Thornberry, like DeChambeau when he was an amateur, come through and play well. Lee McCoy, who has absolutely tanked since his Valspar top 5 a couple of years ago. So I'm interested in them at very little. We saw Matthew Wolff play really good out in the Waste Management. So I'll probably honestly have some shares because there's only 123 players in the field. 70 got to make the cut at minimum, maybe up to 75 or 80. So I'm going to have some sprinkles in my 150 lineups. None of them are going to make a big cash game or higher dollar entry plays.
Don't do that.
Not quite yet. Not quite yet. All right. So speaking of some good flyers, low and plays, a great segment that we added in that kind of allows us to talk about these guys without going down the segment is make the cut segment, which is basically guys that we think we're going to make the cut or not, and we'll give our little bit about it. So right into Cameron Champ. I told you I was going to do it to you most of the weeks until we start to see some consistency. I'm in at 7.6 value K. I'm going to be playing him, so that means I think he's going to make the cut. How about you? I don't think you're back into him, but do you think he makes the weekend?
I am. I am over in exposure. I like the setup here. I think that the talk is cooled around him. He can lean, on the distance, take advantage of the par 5. So I'm right with you. I think he cruises through.
Good. I think this is a really good spot for him. At the chatter has totally cooled. We're getting sub 10% at sub 8K price tag. So this is a perfect spot for Champ. Scott Piercy, since I know you just talked about him,
you better make it.
That's all I take it. Yeah. Okay. Definitely. I was nervous last week because I saw the putting kick up and then he kicked 2 in the water. This is a good stretch for him, but I don't know. I'm nervous about him. I'm not gonna lie. I'm nervous about him.
Yes, you should be. It's very nerve-wracking. He's
especially at 8.1 and he was 25% owned. I couldn't believe that. So yeah, I'm nervous, but maybe that is going to drive the ownership sub 10% at 7.4K. Maybe it becomes viable. I couldn't quite get there. Bo Hostler, what is going on with Bo? Haven't seen him all year pretty much.
A couple of Bo shares in like putter stacks, which That's as desperate as I've gotten with him. He was on the short list of like guys that I thought would be competing for wins in the earlier season, and it has not materialized.
It hasn't even come close, really, which is really upsetting because I like his talent. I like his game. So, all right, here's a guy that's gotten some chatter. So I suspect you'll say he's going to make the cut. He's kind of returning to form that we saw a couple of years ago that sent him out to the TOC when I was there, and other is Kevin Kisner. What do you think about Kiz?
Yeah, Kiz is a guy 2 years ago. Obviously, good showing here. I don't know. He hasn't been playing great. I think he's good enough to get through. He's kind of in the Snedeker bucket, 7-2. No problem using him, but I couldn't get there at the beginning of the week, I thought Kisner might be on the short list for me, and he's not, but he is in the player pool.
Okay. Here's a guy that this has been probably the craziest 3-week swing in price to ownership and then ownership to price is Kierdek Happy Barn Rat. We've seen him go in at 4 weeks ago. He was pretty highly owned at not that high salary. And then Mexico, he was 6.9. Nobody wanted to own him. He top fives. Last week, he was 8.1 and 15% owned. He not even sniffs the cut.
10 over. So
now he's back to 6.8K, and nobody wants to touch him again. So is he going to make the weekend? And is he in the player pool?
Not in the player pool. I think he plays certainly better than last week, but I have a feeling it's a short week for him again. Tough to figure out, but I'm not there.
I am admittedly undecided on him. He is like my one guy that I'm really quite undecided on at this point. Charley Hoffman. Here's the guy. I don't think he's playing the weekend. I'm not ready to go back to him at this point. How about you?
Nope, not there. Eventually Charley Hoffman's going to play good, and then I'll adjust. But it's not yet. Nope.
Yeah. And is he – I don't even know if he's qualified for the Masters yet, which is actually a course that I don't mind for him.
No, he gets out to a 7 under every time at the Masters. It feels like he's winning for a bit.
But I don't think he's even qualified this year. All right, here's a guy that has gotten way too much chatter this week, in my opinion. And granted, his statistical numbers are awesome. Nate Lashley. Is he going to make the weekend? And do you agree with the amount of talk that he's been getting this week?
Yeah, so Nate, this guy is him and Scott Langley. This is the Ryan Blom, and then there was another Ryan with a B. These people need to combine.
Yeah, B-R-E-H.
Golfer. Scott Langley, Nate Lashley, just combine for me. I'm not playing him, no. Can he make the weekend? He's actually made a lot of cuts. Quietly. He's playing pretty good golf, so I'll say he slips through, but I don't worry about him burning me on the DraftKings side.
Okay. How about Joaquin Niemann? Going back in?
Oh, I'm in. Okay. Chilean, my man, just found something. He can't putt, but new surface. Bermuda. That's really what you're banking. His driving is good enough where I'm going to do it. I know the scrambling's a concern, but sub 7K, absolutely for me.
Yeah, this is almost like you're going to laugh at me because we've made it 50. Well, we weren't on quite at 9. We made it 50 minutes, and I did not bring up Jordan Spieth, but I'm going to bring him up now.
Where is he?
He's trying to figure out how to putt. To be honest with you, he's actually at his home, built a putting green, and is hitting 3-footer after 3-footer, hopefully. I don't know really what he's doing, but that's what he should be doing. Niemann is turning into Jordan Spieth on the greens. It is the most frustrating thing to watch. I am going to play him, but I'm not putting him on my shot tracker because he's the most frustrating shot tracker other than Jordan Spieth at this point to watch. You know, he's got an 8-footer. You're like, oh, yes, he's got a 100-yard shot. He's going to put it within 10 feet. Great. And then it's almost a guaranteed miss. The only ones he makes are the 13 to 25-footers. So when you see like a 6-footer for Niemann, he's going to miss it. And I can't take that right now. I'm going to play him a little bit, but not going to put him on shot tracker. 7K guy next, Danny Willett.
No, I used a little Willett in Mexico. I thought that was a nice move. Not here though. I think his game is rounding back to where he's playable most weeks, but I didn't have room for him this week.
Did I miss the boat on Sung Kang?
If it is, we missed the boat because I did no.
Okay. because there was a time a couple of weeks ago he popped top 15. Ownership got a little high. He was getting talked up. The boat left and returned to dock. And is it going back out? Are you going with it? Or
I certainly am not. Sun Kang is the guy that he's in the Danny Lee boat, and I have some Danny Lee folks.
He's next on the list. So it's great.
But I like to play Sun Kang when no one's even thinking about it. When he shows some form, I don't know how well that correlates to the next week with that guy. So I am not there. I think some people will go there. For me, I'd rather play, as I just mentioned, Danny Lee, who is in form, calmer conditions, not windy. I think that plays into his hands. I think he could be a good sub 7K play.
Yep, I'm interested in Danny Lee. How about Corey Connors?
Ooh, I looked at him for a while. He is in a low price range.
6,300. He's kind of priced there with like Sam Burns, who I played last week, obviously, as I mentioned at the top of the show, and a couple of other guys that have played well this year. Let's start with Connors.
It was really close, so I get it, but ultimately I didn't get there.
Okay.
It's just his irons I knew they were going to cool off. No one could keep that pace up, but I'm just not sure exactly where he's at overall. Did you get there with him?
I got there in the $5. Nothing more serious. I think in the $5, I think he provides that. Full transparency. Rory and either Ricky or Koepka or Day or DeChambeau is where I'm starting most of my $5 lineups.
I get someone down there.
Yeah, you got to go down to Ryan Armour and Corey Connors and Sam Burns and these guys to try and get still top quality. If I look at the build that I did last week that won the 150 on DK, it was the top two guys on the board and a bunch of values. So I think that's what I'm going to end up doing. So I'm going to end up with Corey Connors probably a little bit. Burns I'm okay with, but we don't need to talk about him. How about Brunson Burgoon? You were one of the only guys on him last week, but he did flash some really good form. Through Friday, I was like, did Ben go and watch him play?
I thought I was a damn genius.
He did a little bit, but I love to see the form come back. I think at 6K min price, he has to be in the player pool this week.
Definitely. I was super happy with the way it didn't materialize in terms of certainly not money for me, but he struck the ball great and his irons were great. And that's usually what the weak link, he couldn't putt a lick. His off the tee was actually weak, and that's a strong suit of his. So at the flat min, he's not going to be where he was last week in terms of ownership, but he's also not going to be super popular. Obviously, I think he makes a fine play if you build really aggressive.
So before we go on to our top FanDuel values, do you want to bring up anybody below 7K that people should be looking at? Can I get you to go into Anders Albertson, who almost made the cut before tanking on late Saturday? He's min price as well. Anybody else?
No, he's permanently for waste management on the blacklist. This guy is, and I have to mention him, he's going to be in my hot take again. Flat 7K. Aaron Wise is the guy that I really like this week. Form is coming back. I think this course fits him, and I'm either going to be a week early, which is what you want to be, in the sense of I'm going to get him before he flashes, or I'm seeing something that's not about to materialize, because I think this is a pretty good spot for him. We'll see. The form isn't fully back, but by the time he gets there, he's not going to be 7K in this type of field.
He's not going to be 7K or 5 to 7% ownership. He's going to be 7.8 to 8.4 at 12 to 14. Yep.
Okay.
So great call on Aaron Wise there. So, all right, quick top values on FanDuel. I mentioned Brandon Thornberry. If you don't want to play Ty Hatton on DraftKings, which is me and kind of sounded like you, he's probably the second best value over there. Keegan Bradley was the only one that stuck out to me. How about you?
Keegan Bradley was a guy that I was going to say. JT Poston, I think's a decent spot over there. Don't mind him on DraftKings either at 7-1. Just a good striker of the ball. Showed some form making cuts.
Showed some resiliency last week too.
He did. He's a pretty good, solid player in my book. Other than that, Sanjay Im again, I think he makes a fine play on both sides. He's about, I think, what is he, 9K over there? 9K. So, as you said, you're going to be able to make builds that you can't make on DraftKings. So if you have a team, I do this sometimes where I make a team on DraftKings and I'm like, oh, I'm like 200 short. I'll just go right over to FanDuel and see what happens. And if I love those 6 guys, even if it doesn't add perfectly, there's nothing wrong with leaving some money here and there.
No, especially if you like the team.
Exactly. Nothing wrong with that. So that's how I approach it.
So before we get out of here, you've got a great Tuesday show with Tim at Fantasy Golf Man on Twitter, and I caught a little bit of it, and you guys had some interesting Tiger takes. Obviously, he would draw this week. Want to give the fans of Wednesday night an update of where you guys stand and what you guys kind of came away with. What's going on with Tiger, man?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, the big cat. Hopefully, it's not work a day spa related. Obviously, we'll see. I think for him, obviously, it's not saying he doesn't care about a tournament he's won a billion times, but it's the players, it's the majors. So I'm not sure he's overly hurt. I think it might just be more, okay, how do I get myself in the best position to win the things that are ultimately important?
Why did he do that shot in Mexico then? Like if he was hurt, that really bothered me. Yeah.
That's my one concern is if that is the idea, it doesn't really add up with his recent activity in terms of like doing that. I didn't think he would play Honda. But now I don't know. We're going to have to wait and see. It will be very telling what he does with the players.
I'll only say that if he ends up dropping out of the players but ends up getting healthy by Saturday, it's probably best case scenario for me personally because he'll add Valspar to his ticket. He has never won Valspar. The fans loved him here last year. He came in second. So personally, for me, maybe that ends up being the best case is I get Tiger Woods at home at my home course. But I, of course, just want to see him on the golf course, any golf course. I don't really care where it is. DraftKings always puts out more higher prize pools. They did again. Obviously, he withdrew on Tuesday, so they had no chance. They're all going to fill regardless, which should give them a good indication that they don't need Tiger Woods to put up 150K or 200K to first. So my little anecdote on Tiger. But listen, we got to go with the hottest takes because I was partial.
Burning those edges.
You were JT's one putt away for nailing it. So we got to go right back to it.
That eagle, not to derail everything. It was
ridiculous, dude.
Stupid eagle. No, I was impressed with both of ours last week. That's what the people want to see now. As I preface, I'm about to derail. Mine's going to Aaron Wise. I think that he top fives something like this. I think he's going to be there on Sunday. He has the talent to hang in a field like this. I know this is no joke. But give me Aaron Wise. If he can get off to a good start and if the putting can come back, because he's a streaky good putter, I'm going to bank that we see some real good Aaron Wise showing come Sunday.
Yeah, and not to be terribly shameless in the plug here, but Aaron Wise top 5 is 27-1. And the reason I bring that up is, we do a betting show that I come on and join you and Jordan on Fridays. Come check it out. It's at 11 o'clock. Last week, you and I weeded through and both tipped Keith Mitchell at 18-1 when he was in the clubhouse on Friday. We also talked about Sung JM. So wanted to talk about that. I know this is more of a DFS show, but definitely if you're interested in the betting, first 27-1 on a top 5 for Aaron Wise, 15-1 on the top 10. So I like that bet. I'm going right back to another Euro guy, and I'm going to get this one, and it's going to be Matt Wallace. Okay. I got him in the top 10 this week. I think at 7,400 yards, he'll be able to use the little bit of length that he has. Great putter. Needs to hit 14 quality iron shots and make 8 of those putts to get inside the top 10. So I got him doing it this week, and maybe going on a little bit of a run and getting himself some membership onto the PGA Tour like some of these other top Euro guys have done. So had a good finish last week, good finish in Mexico. We're going to see a couple of more WGCs. So he could earn some membership status if he ends up having a couple of good starts. So Matt Wallace is
He's a super talented guy, obviously on the Euro side. Quick shout out, my Euro guy, Maximilian Kiper, almost won the Euro last week. Can't get him into the shows because he can't get on the tour, unfortunately. But I do love that guy. Anyway, any final thoughts before we bounce on out of here?
No. Other than we've got massive GPPs for next week. 200 to first. It's the players. We're going to also see the Millionaire Maker satellites for the Masters come out next week. I'm sure of it. They just didn't want to they didn't want to go up against the players. They're running the $10 satellites for almost a month now. So we'll see Millionaire Maker satellites. I'm sure of it next week, which will get me excited. Not that I need to play them. I just like to see it there because it will be the best weekend of the year for the Masters. So
it's a good time. Yeah, obviously, as we always say, Chad, we love you. Hit the like button. We do appreciate it. And there is no better time with all these big tournaments. Come on over, sign on up. We got a lot of stuff going on inside the paywall, some new features in Slack and whatnot that we rolled out right before the show. But we'll get on out of here. We'll be around. Hit us on Twitter if you have any questions. This is going to be a fun stretch of golf. So let's hopefully get it started on the right foot. Good luck, everyone. See you next week for the players.